How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lo4f, and today I'm going to go and do a mission. It's a little bit of a simple one. I didn't have too much time. This one's called Help the Evacuees. Yeah, it's a mission on Albany River. It's pretty simple. There's two cargo containers that appear to have fallen off kind of on a bridge and everything. So I'm going to go up the right hand side of the map. The actual bridge is there, and you can see the two containers are just kind of on the map, so you'll need a crane. But as it's pretty tight round here to turn around and that, I'm going to kind of, go up to the gateway, loop around so I'm already turned around, and then I've kind of picked a bit of an awkward route to come back really, just to save doubling back on myself. I wasn't sure if I was going to use that last bit or just cut round, but I ended up going the awkward way. And yeah, for this mission, I ended up getting this step, I call it step toe, but step 310, or yeah, something like that. Yeah, it's a truck I've not used for quite a while really. I've never really disliked it. I just think that there's usually something that is a little bit kind of better on the scale. But overall, it's actually not a terrible vehicle. And like I say, as I've not actually had it out in a good while, I figured I'd give it a go, see how it's stacking up these days. One thing you can kind of tell with it already is it's a pretty small vehicle. Like even next to the Lo4f, it's not that much bigger. And then partly because it's a smaller vehicle, it's limited in like the tyre size it can have. So I believe the biggest tyres on here are 43 inch, which, yeah, are probably more like the smaller tyres on a lot of the other trucks, stuff like the Vorons and Taiga. The biggest tyres on them sit around kind of 51 inch tyres, so which kind of makes a difference. I mean, at the minute I've got the what's it called, the step deck trailer, so get my little goddamn horse on there. But I just kind of figured to mix it up. I've been using the ramped flatbed for a little while recently. Yeah, obviously with this mission you're going to need room for 4 slots of cargo, because there's 2 cargo containers, they're 2 slot each. You're going to need a crane because they're scattered on the map, so you're going to have to manually load them. They're a bit awkward where they are as well really. Like I say, they're on a bridge that's fairly narrow, and then they're kind of down in like on a little riverbed. Yeah, knowing what I know now, bear in mind the out of anything, this blue crane is a little bit terrible to say the least at the minute. So I mean, I wouldn't really want to take a vehicle where you take a big crane. Well, I suppose you could if you took something like Dan and a big crane and then a ramped flatbed. I suppose, yeah, you could do it that way, and that'd work out quite nicely. At least the bigger crane would have more reach. Coming down here, I couldn't resist. I thought I'd do a little jump. I actually managed kind of a little one, and it didn't damage me or anything, so that's not too bad. This step toe thing actually managed to get into 8th gear going along the road back there, and was staying in it quite well. It keeps a fairly decent pace considering it's a smaller vehicle. I think the main thing I always found that was sort of missing from this truck, if anything, is it weighs hardly anything. Like, yeah, it weighs about as much as hopes and dreams, so it just doesn't plant itself into the ground very well. So once you're trying to tow something or there's a bit of weight involved, it seems to struggle a little bit more. You can get your you can get up to 8th gear across those bridges as well, but as you can see, as I got to the other side, starts to do the all, I don't know, where it goes all lightweight and floaty. Overall, I can actually see why they've sort of speed capped some of the missions, or like some of the maps, sorry, but I was going to say I wish instead of just capping it, they would kind of adjust the gearbox revs and ratios, or how much power it gives you or whatever, because they seem to just cap the top end, but it's kind of cost us all a bit of engine power to make that happen, whereas I wouldn't mind going a bit slower overall, like so you're not getting up into, say, the equivalent of 8th out of 8th where you're skidding around. But if you still, yeah, if they just reduce the ratios of it so it was a little bit slower and sat just under where it starts to skid around, I'd kind of accept that as a trade-off, sort of lose a bit of speed for a bit more power and torque and everything, I suppose. So yeah, it sort of seemed like a bit of a fair deal. And yeah, going this way is a little bit awkward, not too bad. To be fair, this step toe again's doing pretty well. I've got the chained on this one. There was no major reason I could have put the off-road, the number 2 set on. I just decided to get these because at some point I do want to cut across a riverbed, and I generally find the chained are pretty nice for gripping in sort of the boggy mud that's at the bottom of the rivers and stuff. Yeah, one odd thing though, because this is a Russian truck and it actually doesn't have mud tyres, which is, again, pretty odd. I can't actually think off the top of my head of any other vehicle, any other Russian vehicle that doesn't have muds. I'm not particularly sure why it's missing them. It doesn't... There's no reason why they couldn't add them. But yeah, I just found that a bit odd. So like I say, the main choice really was sort of the off-roads or chained. Yeah. So here's that bridge, like I say, pretty narrow. And those two cargo containers. Which it's a bit awkward. Thankfully, my crane actually does reach that one that's furthest away, because sometimes in this game, it's not just, you can see like the green circle that does a radius of your crane, but it also, well, it doesn't really tell you, but the game kind of factors in how much further down from the crane it is as well. So if you were, for example, on top of a cliff edge and there was a piece of cargo at the bottom of the cliff, even though it's within your green circle and you should in theory be able to reach it, sometimes the game kind of moans, it kind of adds that vertical distance onto like the reach of the crane, so even though sometimes cargo's within your reach, it'll moan and tell you can't. So that's why I grabbed the one that was furthest away first. Yeah, that's what she said. Yeah, packing the cargo, I packed the first one and that obviously worked. I nudged the second box to go on top of it, and I was doing the pack and unpack thing, and for the first time in memory that I can think of, it wouldn't just load the top cargo then onto the back of the trailer, it was just packing and unpacking the first one that's on there. Which is a bit odd. I don't particularly know what the deal with that is, to be honest. There's yeah, like I've done it shitloads really, where I've stacked cargo on top of each other. I don't know if I was just getting a bit unlucky, maybe it's because it's this particular cargo, like maybe it's just this particular mission with this cargo that's already kind of abandoned on the map or anything, but I don't know. I mean, for example, the other day when I did that gold rush mission, I double stacked all the gold on the trailer before I packed that, and that all worked fine. So yeah, I'm not too sure what the issue is with that. Hopefully they don't make a habit of it though, because that's one nice handy little thing really. I mean, that now obviously as a result I've had to, you just have to disconnect the trailer and do that, which is not the end of the world for a mission like this, because I only had to do it once. But that starts to get pretty annoying if you have to go and collect, well, the Gold Rush mission, there was 8, but at least they were kind of bunched up in 2 bunches, but you know what I mean, where you've kind of got to drive across the countryside and keep collecting boxes one by one, if you had to keep disconnecting the trailer and doing that each time, then yeah, that'd soon lose its appeal. And the main thing I sort of noticed with this step-tow really was it actually felt pretty nice on the drive here. I mean, for the most part it was kind of the road running up the right hand side of the map, but towards the end there was a little bit of off-roading to kind of get myself facing the right way when I get the cargo. And yeah, the truck was doing pretty well, the trailer wasn't really being any issue or anything. Now I've got this loaded, I don't know how heavy particularly these cargo containers are. I don't think they should be any heavier than normal. I kind of left a little bit of footage in. The blue cranes struggle like crazy, so I edited some of it out because it's just painfully slow to watch. They don't operate like cranes should, if you know what I mean. When I'm getting the footage, I'm trying to lift it higher in the air and it's not moving, etc. So yeah, I just kind of edited some of that out to neaten it all up. But yeah, I mean this is one of the things with this step-tow, because it doesn't weigh a lot at all. Now I think the trailer is like the dominant weight in this situation, so that's kind of dictating what my step-tow can do rather than the other way around. Now mine's struggling a bit to claw up here. That hill is a bit awkward there. They make it tip quite easily there. Hence why I'm sort of running up the right hand side. If I followed like the tracks of the road I probably would tip. But yeah, you can see I'm just struggling to stay planted and kind of pull this trailer through. They've definitely adjusted this trailer in some way. It's not the end of the world, but it does feel a bit kind of heavier and more noticeable once it bogs down in the dirt roads. And it's sort of, as well, I will say, to be fair, it's probably not the best trailer to be paired with this truck, because it's only got the 43-inch tyres. It obviously overall sits a fair few inches lower than a lot of the other trucks, just on tyres alone. Obviously you got different chassis heights on top of that, but yeah, long story short, this truck sits pretty low overall, so obviously now ticking along the road, there's no issue. But once I'm getting bogged down in some of these dirt roads, not just the trailer's dragging, but the actual legs at the front of the trailer are actually sort of sitting low enough to dig in, which for most trucks they don't, because they sit quite close to the back of the truck. As long as there's enough height on the truck, it just never really gets the chance to do that. But once this thing starts sinking in the mud itself, it does make the trailer sit particularly low, and you'll see a couple of times where it's basically beaching a little bit and I'm sort of struggling to get moving. I keep firing panic winches out, well, not really panic winches, but just, I don't know, like autopilot, fire a winch out, try and grab a tree, get me boosted along, moving along a little quicker. So yeah, as I said, I kind of purposely picked an awkward route where I just turned off to the right to cut down the dirt road. In theory, I could have just followed the main road basically all the way back past the garage from like where I started this mission. I just thought it'd be a little bit sort of boring and non-eventful, so yeah, I decided to cut down here, have another attempt at cutting across this water, which you end up at the port on this map. It's actually quite a nice little route. It's obviously not really an official route, although I'm assuming they kind of, I don't know, thought we might attempt it, because really they could have made this part of the water just so ridiculously deep that it's not even worth looking into. But for the fact that you can just about scrape by, I mean, I kind of knew at this point I was risking it a little bit with this truck, because again, it's a very small truck, so it sits quite low. Overall, the snorkel's pretty low. And now as well, I was also having like a bit of an issue with basically it's wanting to tip. I wasn't really turning off to the right then either, but it obviously slopes down to one side. Thankfully there was a dead tree line there, so I was able to grab onto that. I think that mostly helped me from tipping, but yeah, now I'm going to have to kind of let go of it. Tried to fire a winch to like the trailer. I start stalling a little bit now, or not stalling, sorry, like actually taking engine damage, so the snorkel is underwater. And I suppose, strictly speaking, if I was coming the other way, the truck would be leaning where the snorkel would be on like the highest point of the truck. Going this way, the way I was leaning, I was actually sort of dunking the snorkel underwater a little bit. But you can see, it destroyed my engine until it was going to be broken. I just quickly turned the engine off to go into the loaf for repairs before it fully killed it. But the current's naturally kind of flowing along, and because I've gone in the water on a diagonal, which was on purpose generally speaking, because if you go fully side onto the current, it'll either tip your truck, or yeah, if you go diagonally you get a little boost. So while I switched to the loaf and was fixing the step toe, the current was just moving me along a little bit, so then by the time I fired up the engine I was close enough to the other side of the bank to where I don't even really think it took any damage actually once I fired it back up. But yeah, I mean, goddamn horse, get yourself a loaf. It was a good job I had him with me, because I wouldn't have made it over that river otherwise. And obviously I didn't attempt it, but when I first started going in the river and I started taking engine damage, there's a possibility if I turned my engine off at that point, as long as I was far enough in the river and the current might catch me, I possibly could have, you know, saved my engine health by turning it off a little bit earlier and let the current carry me a bit further over the river. But it's risky. I'd certainly recommend taking a goddamn horse just in case. Because worst case as well, if for some reason the step toe was like stuck in the water there, I could have ended up jumping the loaf off the trailer and sort of sending that forward as a mobile winch point as well. And yeah, that was another point. Now I did a bit of editing there because nothing was really happening. The winches feel particularly weak at the minute, but the back corner of the trailer, or sorry, like the just under the step deck bit where the trailer legs are, they were catching on those rocks there, hence well, I was pretty much just stuck still, and even though I was pulling on the winch, it was just kind of locked in place. Yeah, at that point I wasn't really looking in front of me. I sort of, until the last second, I seen those boxes, and I just, before I even kind of realised that they're removable objects, I'd already hit it, bounced on it, ran over it. And yeah, deleted my step toe pretty good. I think I deleted the fuel tank, the suspension, and popped a tyre as well. But again, goddamn horse, he still had enough repairs left to get me sorted. I transferred a little bit of fuel as well. I was going to try and make the run from here to the end without moving any fuel over, but then as I just deleted the fuel tank and that as well, I assume I would have drained a bit as well, so Right, sod it. Just accept my fate. Transfer a bit of fuel over. This hill here is pretty steep. There's a what vehicle was it? I was driving on the other day. I can't remember if it was that Western Star. No, I don't think it was. There was something I was driving up here though that was not too happy about going up in high gear. So this thing's credit, it stayed in high gear, motored its way up there. And now I'm back on the roads, at least for this part. Obviously, this truck feels back to normal again. The trailer's obviously not having any issues with bottoming out. I mean, it's one of them with this truck. If I had to do this mission again and I wanted to get it done as efficiently as possible or whatever, I'd probably take a bit of a sort of sturdier, heavier vehicle particularly, or maybe actually take the ramped flatbed as well, just to pair with this, as even though that has its own issues, it shouldn't be as bad as bottoming out as this one. And then yeah, now I could have followed the road along, but again, I just wanted to push my luck a bit, cut across here. I mean, clearly it's not the most ideal of routes to take. Wasn't too happy about it as well. The trailer bottomed out again. I will give it a pass on this one, as I have gone a bit of an awkward angle, and as you can see, about 8/10 of the trailer was kind of sticking over the back of that rock, so that's fair enough. That probably would happen. It was just about to go that way. Looks like there's quite a few trees kind of blocking that. It's a shame they made this cut through as well, quite as rocky as they have, although I suppose, to be fair, it's not just serving it you on a plate, but it is actually doable to make it through here. But yeah, if it was probably a little bit more clear, just so it's kind of, I don't know, sort of encourages to do it a bit. I think I'm a sucker for punishment a bit on this game. Sometimes, again, it depends on the mission. If there's a bit of a quick mission, I might push my luck a bit more with the route I take or whatever, and risk adding a bit more time. Obviously, some of the longer missions, I'm generally looking for dropping the hammer and getting things done. I probably don't necessarily experiment too much with crazy routes to take. I will say though, this truck actually stayed in high gear going all the way along there. You have to squeeze through the gap next to that tree, and it was still in high gear now. And I fired a winch out. I went down to auto now, but it didn't actually say to me at any point it was stolen, which is kind of, yeah, credit where it's due. That's not too bad. And yeah, it was struggling to climb up here, but I know this route is particularly awkward. I came this way ages. It was more when this mission, this phase first got released. I believe I went up there in might have even been a Paystar 5600. Yeah, just to check out if it was even a viable route at all. Again, I mean, you can for a bit of fun. Certainly not the smartest way to go if you're trying to not take damage and not roll and all the rest of it. Yeah, I had to use one of those trees I winched to. I was using the winch, but this truck must have been driving forward under its own steam for the most part, because at first the tree didn't even pop out of the ground, which doesn't take that much force to do that. And yeah, like I say again, it was just a completely awkward route to take really. I could have just followed the main road all the way back down the right of the map, but where's the fun in that? And then yeah, dropped 2 cargo containers off. Pretty simple, they just say, yep, thanks for whatever. 7.5 grand though, not bad. Honk the horn, oh, blew their garden up. Like, there you go, you're welcome. The invoice is in the post. But yeah, anyway, that's about it for today though. I hope you enjoyed, I hope that helps. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon.